Greetings and God bless. So, I was listening to Jennifer Daniels' podcast, and they were talking about UT, which is apparently it's something, if we are to believe there are astronauts, that this is something that how they consume liquids. And and so I just wanted to go over, so when there's no electricity, when we don't have lights, when we don't have running water, when there's no more gas. And this could be a situation you find yourself in. Let's say you've gone camping and maybe there's been some sort of storm, and every, the situation is kind of a disaster area. You've survived, but there aren't the things, the conveniences that we take for granted. And so the first thing our body needs, the very first thing, I think we can't live. It's something like 4 seconds, or 10 seconds or something. We can't live without adrenaline. So we need our adrenal glands. We need, and this is old information. It might be more about the mitochondria. And so what feeds our mitochondria? From what I understand, light is a very big nourisher of that. So you need ideally sunlight exposure. And if you don't have that, you can use light pads. So this is a light kind of device, and it goes like this, and it has red light, infrared, I think maybe far infrared, and it does have a couple blue lights. You can get a light box, and I would avoid using LED. I would especially avoid using fluorescent lights. Fluorescent have mercury vapors that form at one part, especially the overhead tubes. It concentrates at the ends, and people who work indoors under fluorescent light tend to get skin cancer because it's the mercury vapors. They're just baking in the office with those kind of fluorescents. But generally use incandescent lights, but it's really important to get natural light for your mitochondria. But back to the adrenal glands. So after you after adrenaline, which you need within seconds, hydration. Well, actually, even before adrenaline, the top one is mental attitude. Like, you have to be fighting for your life, and I would include fighting for your life, for your safety, for your existence. I would include having faith in God. Um, because without that, I mean, yes, some people, they'll claw themselves through whatever, and they have no faith, and they're just doing it all themselves. And hopefully, maybe one day they will find Jesus. But you have to have your mental attitude. And I learned that from reading Cody Lundin's books, uh, which I recommend. They're very good, very accessible if you've had any kind of brain damage, learning disability, Lyme disease, mold exposure, and your cognition is somewhat impaired. I mean, not to put down that book, but it's just a very accessible medium that his books just written very clearly, and with compelling, fun graphics that are informative. Just the best cartooning I've seen in a while for educational. So it's like good edutaining, life saving information, and that's what this video is about. So you have to have a good mental attitude. You have to have adrenaline. And I would actually add mitochondrial, some sort of mitochondrial strength. And a lot of people's mitochondria is dysfunctional from mold exposure or prolonged stress, even, or low grade Lyme and co-infections, or some other infection, like toxin exposure from fragrances or radiation, or whatever, or some type of physical injury that hasn't been properly treated. That's just a skimming the surface. So people's mitochondria, it has, I believe, has been engineered. So we're just, as human beings, we're operating suboptimally, and especially I would say the past couple of years. So I'm just going to take care of this um, spam that for some reason Russian spam really likes likes my live streams. Um, so we have mental attitude, we have the adrenaline. The next one is water. So when, like, if an EMP happens where the electrical grid has been, like some bomb has exploded and it does what's called an EMP, and it fries maybe the grid, maybe computers, phones. So one of the things that's possible if you don't have running water, if you're in Arizona or something like that, is how are you going to hydrate? We definitely need to hydrate. So when people have been trapped, like on the ocean or wherever in deserts, when you urinate, there is actual water in there, and properly done, you can actually either distill it or actually consume it. Now, just think about the process. The first bit of urine, what is that? That's cleaning out the urethra. So you don't want to capture that part of the urine. You want it to clean things out. But that midstream urine is fresh from the inside of your body. It's sanitized. It's hygienic. It's urine actually is the most studied human fluid of like of anything because it's so powerfully healing. So I know we have a huge taboo against it, but when there is no water, consider this. So of course you would want a clean container. You do a midstream. Now, what happens? Let's say, so do you want the final last every little drop? I would say no, because think of a container. And so what's at the bottom of a container? Sediment, whatever. So I would I would not take the last residue of that. I would not use it for consumption. So you just take the mid part. You let the front part of the stream clear things out, and you don't capture the last part that might have like sediment or whatever in it. So that midstream, you can either drink that, or if you wanted to distill that. And I'm not an expert in distilling. I'm not an expert even in consumption, but that is an option when there is no water. And if you do have water, but um, it's limited, you could use this to wash your hands, wash your feet. It's very it's a good cleaning agent. I mean, it has tannins in it, so I don't know all the historic uses of it, but that is an option. And it's good for wound healing. You've probably heard about people in the tropics or whatever, or people getting athlete's foot and successfully treating it with their urine. So it's an antiseptic agent. Now, if you have kidney disease, if you're taking pharmaceuticals, that is going to go into your urine. So that then I would not drink it, but you might be able to distill it because the distillation would separate whatever I think is in there. Although I have heard that distillation can't remove some pesticides. So I know there's pesticides in everything now, but anyways, so when there is no gas and so forth, this is these kind of things can help you just maybe mitigate some of the more desperate situations, just to know that you're hydrating. Now, let's say the grid is down, for whatever reason. Maybe somebody hacked, like last year, like how is it that number one, Texas got a crazy freezing storm that broke their windmills. So for 10 days, they were freezing and people died. I mean, that was just very. It sounds like it was engineered, in my opinion, and so that can happen, and that may happen. So it's good to just have this information that astronauts have used urine therapy. Apparently, if we believe that there are astronauts, but regardless of that, it is a traditional medicine. And another one that I have heard about, perhaps like, if there's less sanitation, we do want to make sure, like in the olden times, people did do regular parasite cleansing. So, like, if you look at old medical books, they talk about um, cod liver oil being like they would give kids cod liver oil. And something I'm hearing about is turpentine, taking a little bit of turpentine in some sugar, and that is a parasite cleanse. I've heard, I was reading an account of soldiers in World War II, I think it was, and they would actually drink like a teaspoon of gasoline, I believe it was, which really boggles my mind. Um, you could use, I mean, we hear a lot about activated charcoal, right? So if somebody has an stomach upset, burnt toast is like a charcoal. Um, and if there's no bread, I wonder if maybe charred wood, a little bit of charred wood, that's charcoal. And I was looking up, or I just stumbled across a recipe for a type of bread when there was such food shortages. And this used flour, it used local weeds. And of course, if you're using local weeds, you want to make sure that it's never been sprayed or it's not been sprayed with pesticides, that dogs haven't peed and pooped on the weeds, that there's no bird droppings all over the weeds. So you want to make sure it's a fairly clean bunch of greenery that you're gathering. So no pesticides, no poop and pee of animals or birds or humans or whatever. So you want to make sure you're not getting totally exposed with sewage or pesticides. But they made this mix with what they had: some flour, some weeds, and uh, sawdust. Now, I'm not so sure how great sawdust is, and of course, you want to make sure you're not harvesting poisonous weeds. So, and of course, you probably wouldn't want to use dandelion because that's kind of bitter. But maybe a little bit of dandelion though, because dandelion is a good liver herb. Now, if you're doing these creative things, you want to start off slow as well. So, like with the consumption of urine, I mean, you could start off with a drop, you know, um, and I would try to make sure to, number one, now is the time to make sure your health is optimal. Now is the time to make sure that you're eating regular meals, you're hydrating regularly, you're getting good sleep. It's March 12th, 2022, and it seems like the world is on the edge of a collapse. This is not a time to stay out at late, party, do just like, uh, you know, have a crazy time. Um, at least regularly. I mean, I understand it's good to If you've been under strain for the past 2 years, and like today you're watching this video and you're like, oh, well, I was going to go out for the first time in 2 years. I mean, I think, yes, okay, reasonably, yes, it's good to um, experience joy of life and connect with people, but as a way of life, where every night is a bacchanalia or something like that. That's now's not the time for that. So just make sure you're taking care of your body, you're stocking up on your pantry, uh, that you're paying attention to, like, you know, we have heard about governments seizing people's accounts from truckers to entire nations like Russia, like to individuals and their properties in other countries. I mean, so things are extraordinarily insane right now. So, getting back to the basics of survival, when there is no power and no water and no food, um, like from what I have researched about survival, people actually thrive in survival situations, like when they're on a desert island or something like that. Of course, the conditions, if you can't survive, I mean, if they're deadly, then um, you're in a really bad situation. But life becomes very simple when you're trapped on a desert island, because you're like, okay, I need to get shelter, I need to get water, I need to get food, I need to protect myself from wild animals or the elements. And so life really, you have your 5 goals, and when you complete your 5 goals, compared to nowadays where it's like we have 100,000 pieces of information we're trying to keep track of. We have all these complex relationships with people that are not working out. There's all these things you want to buy or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, we in our comfortable normal life, it's unmanageable and very challenging. But when everything has been taken away and you're just trying to survive, so you've got just like 5 things, for the moment, 5 priorities. It actually can be satisfying and um, maybe even uplifting. And of course, if a huge disaster happens and you've lost your family members right in front of your eyes, of course, that can lend a whole other aspect. But let's say, you're safe, you're sound, you're home, but there's no power, no gas, no electricity, no internet. What do you do? So we've covered the mindset, the hydration options. I mean, of course, it's important. Try to make sure you have water. Try to make sure you have a source to water, and how to treat your water. I'm not an expert on treating water, but it sounds like iodide tablets, some type of water filter, creating a water filter. Stumbled across a video about using flower pots, and apparently that is an old time water filter technology as well. And now that we have, you know, uh, charcoal, sand, I mean, there's all this know-how about doing a DIY cheap water filter. So, so that's for those who have nearby water sources. And we've talked a little bit about possible food options, so wild crafting, taking a look, becoming a little bit familiar with safe weeds, safe trees, because you can actually forage leaves from trees. But again, you want to be safe. And so fire, that would be another one if you need warmth. Although it's not an absolute necessity. And the next one that's coming to mind is I've been reading, stumbling across terminology called being a gray man, so being nondescript. And folks say that it's, just try to blend in with the crowd, don't really stand out, and try to avoid being flashy, try to avoid conspicuous displays of wealth. Also, avoid food smells from where you are. So you don't really want the smell of cooking food to draw people to you. Also, if you also want to be careful to avoid at right now and ongoing. Don't tell other people what resources you have. Don't brag to other people how much silver you saved or food you've stored. Say I have like 5 packs of ramen noodles. I have 3 right now. But you want to make sure to avoid just conspicuous displays because, especially right now, we are in evil times. I mean, people aren't even um, compelled by karma anymore. They don't. Nobody cares. People are really despicable, and I have noticed this in super liberal communities, somewhat conservative communities, and I'm saying from trying to cross the street and all demographics, recklessly driving, trying to kill me basically time and time again. It could be a black person, it could be a white person, it could be a big, huge $100,000 pickup truck, or a hippy dippy guy in a Prius. I've experienced this all, from Norfolk, Virginia to Montana to South Dakota. Blowing coal. They like to roll coal. They like here in South Dakota. For some reason, I'm waiting at my light, and pickup trucks here seem to hate pedestrians, and so they roll coal. And I've had this happen more than once. Or if they haven't set up their truck to blow this black smoke, leave this trail of black smoke for like 20 feet, they like to step on the gas or something to make a really loud sound as they're driving away in an angry manner. Like, so I don't understand why. It's 20 degrees. I'm trying to cross the street, and some guy in a t-shirt in his huge pickup truck is so angry at me for crossing the street when it's my light, when I'm doing the legal thing, when he's at a stop sign. I mean, so anyways, I'm just saying this is like people are demonized, and I would include a lot of Christian drivers are demonized. I think there's something about going fast on wheels that makes people bad. And I mean, I noticed this as a bicyclist. Um, you're just trying to survive. Now, if you're in a car, you're on 4 wheels, you're very stable. When you're on a bicycle, it's a much more uh, desperate situation. However, I'm not saying that that gives reckless bicyclists any right. I'm not saying that. I just know for me, and I ride like an old lady, but like normally, like I can get impatient when I'm wanting to cross the street, and I I try to stop at every, even though it's my right of way. Uh, um, I'm not perfect either, but cars are dangerous, and a bicycle is not going to hurt a driver. And I do have that. I do think that if I'm going off of the sidewalk onto the road and it's a small street, that a car should be looking to stop, because the major road. I mean, they would stop if there was a truck going on its right of way, but cars nowadays don't want to stop when there's a bicyclist or a pedestrian. I'm sorry about for the digression. So back to survival, though, it's good to think about when there's no gasoline. So, do you have maybe a little red wagon or a shopping cart? One of those portable, like in cities, you'll see these kind of vertical, tall, or rolling luggage. So that can help you when, let's say, the farmer's market, that will become the new hub when there's no electricity. And maybe some stores will open their doors if they can, because now everything is electrical. So maybe, stores will be locked out because they can't open use the electrical whatever to open the gates. So I think that those are and waste. So it's good if you have, you know, like, do you have, one of those white gallon buckets, those larger buckets that you can make your own little commode there. And you could use, so you want to separate your urine waste. And if you're not, excuse me, if you're not going to use it for a water backup, um, it can be like I mean, it can be used in gardening, but it can be almost too strong. So I'm not sure. Like, and if you don't have extra water to dilute it, like let's say you have, a stream or a river nearby where you can safely haul water, you can dilute the urine and use it in the garden. I'm not sure what the ratio is, but you can easily look that up right now. And but for solid waste, you can use like grocery bags or whatever kind of bags, and collect solid waste that way. Or if you have land, you could try to do some type of compost situation, uh, and you can compost that waste, and the compost itself should be put at trees. You don't really want to use that kind of thing on your food, because we we're eliminating a lot of toxic things in the solid waste, which is different than urine. So I think I would leave that at that. Just make sure to take care of your feet. Make sure to take care of your hands. Be cautious about burns or like injuries that could become a lot worse. So, really try to avoid being on ladders, standing on chairs, like any kind of sketchy thing. Like, there's not going to be an ambulance to necessarily take you. And if the past 2 years haven't taught us anything, like, the last place you want to be is in that big building with the so-called medical people who are still trying to get the incentive money from that infection. People are just inconsequential. The standard of care, getting that money for the standard of care, is what those people in the white coats, that they just want their standard of care, and it has nothing to do with your health. That has nothing to do with you remaining alive. So anyways, it's really up to you. So you have to really pay attention. This is not a time to just check out on pharmaceuticals or self-medicating or being, three sheets to the wind, or gaming your life away. Um, like we're in a decline of civilization, a destruction, a deliberate engineered destruction of civilization. And I don't know what, I mean, I believe Jesus is going to return, because there's this GMO product that's been injected to people, and it's being released into the water, possibly the food. And with genetic modification, it just seems like, uh, so things won't be its original species, and a lot of people seem to not adapt to this genetic modification with the all the heart problems and reproductive problems. So it's killing humanity. So I feel like Jesus has to return soon, but who knows? Maybe this has happened before, and um, maybe things aren't as dire as they appear to me to be. So, anyways, if you have anything else that you think is good to add, I think it's good to make sure you have oil like olive oil, coconut oil. Oils are really healing. I would apply that to your skin regularly. Especially I really like olive oil, but even sesame oil. It's just very nourishing for the body. It's protective. Um, and yeah, so I think I would leave it at that, and just add any other suggestions like barter items. What do you think is good to stock up on? And be reasonable about it. Like, don't buy 300 rolls of toilet paper or something. And speaking of toilet paper, I just lastly, somebody was suggesting creating some type of bidet type of thing. So there's a type of women's like when a mother has given birth, and I guess so. It's a type of bottle that has this little squirt thing, and it's like a perineum wash or something like that. So there's these type of things where you could wash off the area so it doesn't require toilet paper. So I think that's very interesting. It's a whole paradigm shift for Americans because we're just used to toilet paper. But when there's no toilet paper, you can actually just use a stream of water. Like, who would have thunk? Like we're just so. I mean, we're so domesticated, and I love my internet. I love that we have lights. I like a warm room, so there we go. And now it's time to get more comfortable. How to be wild in a way, um, and yeah, share what your suggestions are. What have I missed? Feel free to post any other links or suggestions, websites for ideas. So, and remember always to pray. God bless.